The 7 deadliest sports in history. Let's start with sports that carried a risk of injury and gradually moved towards sports where the loser was sacrificed to the gods. Number 7. Pankration. The sport the ancient Greeks would say makes modern MMA look like a children's game, and which is considered the father of modern MMA. However, there were far fewer rules here. The only forbidden actions were biting and gouging eyes. Everything else was allowed. Kicking, punching, choking, and joint-breaking techniques were completely legitimate. This sport, which combined wrestling and boxing techniques, was said in ancient Greek mythology to have been created by heroes such as Heracles and Theseus. To understand how brutal this sport was, it is probably enough to look at what happened to a champion named Aricion. At the Olympic Games in 564 BC, while being strangled by his opponent, he made a final move and dislocated his opponent's ankle. His opponent, writhing in pain, surrendered, but at that moment, Aricion had died from suffocation. The judges declared the corpse the winner. The man was dead, but he won the match. That is a true victory unto death. Pankration was one of the most popular and prestigious events of the ancient Olympic Games and had been included in the program since 648 BC.
Number 6. Hihalua lava sledding. Do you like sledding but think, I wish the ground were sharp volcanic rocks instead of soft snow? Then Hawaii's Hihalua sport is just for you. In this ancient Polynesian sport, brave athletes slid down the slopes of volcanic mountains at incredible speeds on narrow wooden sleds. According to some sources, the speeds could become extremely high. There were no brakes on these tracks, no steering, and the only way to stop was either to reach the end of the track or lose balance and crash into sharp lava rocks. If you lost your balance along the way, the risk of serious injury was quite high. If you fell while sliding at high speed, the first thing you would see would be sharp rocks. According to ancient Hawaiian beliefs, this sport was associated with Pele, the goddess of fire. Only chiefs and elite warriors could do this sport because it required both great courage and extraordinary skill. So if you got injured, at least you were serving a divine purpose. Number 5. Egyptian fishermen spear fights. In this ancient Egyptian sport held on the Nile River using papyrus boats, the goal was simple: knock the opposing team into the water by hitting them with long poles. It sounds like a fun water park activity, right? But there is one small detail you are forgetting: the hungry crocodiles of the Nile River that hadn't had breakfast yet. At that time, many people did not know how to swim, so the risk of drowning for those who fell into the water was real. But even if they could swim, there were crocodiles and aggressive hippos waiting for them below, so you really had to try not to fall. Ancient Egyptian coffins and wall paintings clearly show how violent these competitions were. These contests were usually held as part of ritual and festival celebrations during important periods such as the harvest season. So there was no need for a referee in this game. The wild residents of the Nile took care of that. Number 4. Chariot racing, Roman chariot races. One of the high adrenaline sports of the Roman era was undoubtedly chariot racing at the Circus Maximums. What set it apart from modern motorsports was that there were no seatbelts or protective equipment. In races conducted with chariots pulled by 4 horses, drivers wrapped the reins around their waists. This provided better control, but in the event of an accident, what the Romans called naufragium, meaning shipwreck, the horses could drag the driver along the ground, causing serious injuries. The only thing the driver could do was try to cut those reins with the knife he carried on his belt. But how much you could manage that while 4 terrified horses were dragging you at high speed was up to you. However, those who took the risk could become the richest athletes in history. A driver named Gaius Apuleius Diocles amassed an enormous fortune over his 24-year career. According to modern calculations, his earnings would be worth billions of dollars today. So either you took a serious risk or you became one of the richest people in imperial history. Number 3. Venatio, wild animal hunts.
In Roman arenas, gladiators did not only fight each other, sometimes the wildest creatures of nature were released into the arena. In these games called venatio, lions, bears, leopards, and even elephants were pitted against professional hunters known as venatores. Thousands of animals were killed in these spectacles. During the opening games of the Colosseum, in events that lasted 100 days in 80 BC, it was recorded that thousands of animals were killed. Sometimes prisoners were thrown into the arena unarmed and fed to wild animals. This was a method of execution known as damnatio ad bestias, meaning condemnation to the beasts. So, the Romans loved sports filled with brutality.
Number 2. Naumachia, staged naval battles. When gladiator fights started to seem boring to the Romans, they wanted an even bigger spectacle, sports games called Naumachia, known as staged naval battles. In these shows, initiated by Julius Caesar in 46 BC, massive areas were filled with water and full-size ships were placed inside. Thousands of prisoners, war captives, and gladiators were put on these ships, and a real naval battle was reenacted. In the largest Naumachia organized by Emperor Claudius in 52 BC, records state that approximately 19,000 people and 100 ships were used. In this massive spectacle held on Lake Fucine, thousands of people lost their lives, and this event was also documented by the historian Tacitus. There was no escape for the participants. Even if your ship sank, the walls of the arena and armed guards surrounded everything. For the audience, it was a magnificent spectacle. For the participants, it was usually a tragic end. Number 1. Mayan ball game, Pok-Ta-Pok. And at the top of our list is the sport where the losers were sacrificed to the gods, the famous ball game of Mesoamerica. In this ritual game, played by the Maya, Aztec, and Olmec civilizations, players tried to pass a heavy and hard rubber ball through a stone hoop without using their hands, using only their hips, knees, and elbows. The ball weighed about 4 kilograms and was so hard that hitting your body forcefully could cause serious injuries or even internal bleeding. Players wore padded leather clothing for protection. But the real nightmare began when the match was over. Many archaeological findings and historical sources show that this game was linked to ritual sacrifices. There is strong evidence that at the end of the match, the captain of the losing team, or sometimes the champion of the winning team, was sacrificed to the gods. Sacrifice scenes are clearly depicted on the walls of the ball court at Chichen Itza. In fact, some Aztec carvings also show sacrifice scenes related to the game. This was not just a sport. It was part of cosmological and religious beliefs. For them, the game represented the struggle between good and evil and the movement of the sun and the moon. So there was no relegation in this game. You literally exited life. In modern soccer, you get angry at the referee for offside calls, but here, the referees were shamans, and instead of red cards, there were far more permanent consequences. As you can see, in the past, being an athlete required not only talent, but also incredible courage and survival instincts. The next time you get angry over a foul on a turf field, be thankful that you were not eaten by a crocodile, dragged into fire, or sacrificed to the gods according to their beliefs. If you like this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to my channel. You can mention in the comments which part surprised you the most. See you in the next video, take care, and be careful while doing sports.